Welcome to Moral of the Story, a podcast where everyday people talk about their real life experiences.
We live?
Yep.
I'm feeling pretty good right now. Yeah, cause everything I've ever wanted is within my reach. But I've got to be impeccable whenever I speak.
Welcome, Kalkidan.
Thank
Appreciate you taking the time. This is honestly going to be quite a vulnerable conversation, but I feel like it's going to impact a lot of people. And yeah, appreciate you coming on.
No, it's an honour to be here. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I just want to briefly touch on some of the themes we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some big topics that don't get talked about a lot, and I know you have a very unique perspective and experience. So breaking that down, I think that will be huge for a lot of people listening, watching, or however they're consuming. So from the start, I believe, so you were adopted at a very early age, right?
Yeah.
And then brought here to Australia, and then you're a mother. You became a mother at what age?
23.
That's a young age. And yeah, those two are very big topics that I think it's very unique. First off, the adoption side of your life, and then becoming a mother. So just breaking those down, I think, will help a lot of people with just navigating the adversity that you've dealt with and overcoming it, and even just your perspective and mindset on all those sort of areas of your life and how you've dealt with it. So, well, let's start. I feel like we need to start at the beginning. Adoption. Can you give us a quick backstory of the beginning of your journey and where that started?
Yeah, so I was adopted with my biological brother when I was 3 and he was 2 in 1997. And I was adopted into a family here in Australia that already had, my parents had 4 of their own kids already. So we came in as 5 and 6.
Wow.
And I was brought into quite an affluent family in an area that has only white people and a school that only had white people, and then a high school the same. And it was a very weird experience because I found that they were quite educated people but didn't have much life experience or understanding. So growing up, I was always told how lucky I was to be adopted and to have left Ethiopia, such a poor country. And so my idea of the country that I was born was very tainted. And my understanding of my adoption was that I should be grateful because I was the lucky person to have left such a bad situation.
Yeah.
So, and that's the understanding that I had as a kid about adoption. Even though it wasn't very, it wasn't like that in my own family. My family because both my parents have NGOs in Ethiopia. So they have, my mum has a school and my dad has an organisation, because he's a doctor, where they educate training doctors in Ethiopia, and they bring over Australian doctors over there and work. So within my family, it wasn't oh, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But the outside world, which I spent most of the time with, at school or anywhere else, it was just this clashing idea. And in order for me to survive, I kind of had to take on that mindset and that mentality of just being yeah, cool, I'm the lucky one that got adopted. And thank God I left a country as poor as Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I became when I left high school and I had a gap year in Ethiopia, where I reconnected to my birth country and realised, had a more understanding, a more depth of an understanding of the actual country and how beautiful it was and how beautiful the people were. And it's the first time I think in my life where I was proud to have come from a country so rich in culture and history. And I think I came back from that trip very different in the way that I stood up for myself when people would say, oh, you're adopted, you're lucky or something. I would just shut that down automatically because I had that own experience, whereas I could still see my brothers accepting I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
And just because it's almost like survival.
Yeah.
In order to handle a situation like that, because it's such a like you said, it's such a like a raw thing to have happened to you. Like it's one or the other. You either like fit in or you're constantly fighting to defend yourself about something that you don't really have any understanding about.
What are you, what are you fighting? What is exactly?
Well, I mean, it changes throughout like your adolescent life and growing up.
What was that in the early stages of life? Like
for me,
can I get one question out? What were your adoption parents, were they upfront with it?
Yeah, everybody always asks that. Like when were you told that you were adopted? Which is a very like normal question to ask. But I always knew I was adopted because, well, I get told when I first came here, even though I was 3 years old, like I spoke as if I was like 15 or 16. And because I was like the primary caregiver of my brother, my younger brother, like I'd been raising him since he was born. So I like took that kind of motherly role very serious. And yeah, so I think they must have explained to us, because I don't have much memory, but they must have explained to us
very early on.
That we're coming to Australia. This is like you've got a new mum and dad. This is your situation. And like they're white and I'm brown, so it was pretty obvious.
Yeah, okay.
Like both my parents were white, so it wasn't like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I just always knew.
And so going forward now, what was the hardest part of, like, what were you fighting with the most, like in the outside world, outside of your family, with, I guess, other people's opinions on your situation? Like, what was that you're fighting with?
Well, I think the most difficult fight that I had was when I was in school. And, you know, when you're at school and you're doing family trees or you're kind of just your history, kind of in primary school, it's a lot about that. Or you bring photos of when you're a baby or things like that.
It's like the show and tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
and just stories about your ancestors, anything like that. I don't know why, but my school was always doing things like that. And it just... like I would always, I'm not a very religious person, but I would always find myself as a kid like praying, like I wish like I knew what my mum looked like or my dad looked like, or I had some sort of understanding of like where I came from. And it was such an awkward conversation for me to have start with my parents, because I felt like I'd be ungrateful if I brought up like, hey, what did my mum and dad look like, or what are their names, or stuff like that. So I just never discussed it at all. And I think I held a lot of resentment because my parents knew that this kind of stuff was happening at school. Yeah. But they would just give me stuff like from their family tree and like never discuss like, maybe you want to know about your family tree. Right. But like having like a kid myself and just like navigating being a parent, it's a difficult job. Yeah. You know, and like I know that their intentions were always pure and like they never meant to kind of skip past that, but it was just a conversation that I never had. Yeah. And then and they never got taught it. Like they're new to this space as well. Like we're the first kids that they've adopted. So I think the support around having these conversations was just not there. It was more like the support to assimilate the kids, like make them learn English, do football, like these kind of like really stereotypical Australian things is what we did. Yeah. And then we had a psychologist that we spoke to, but it kind of all stopped when we were 5. Right. And then from then it was just like the family and the adopted kids just deal with it. Right. You know, sort of thing.
Yeah,
like,
wow.
So
that was her early age to just stop it. Like,
yeah, but you would like I learned English within the 6 months, like fluently of being here, and forgot my native tongue like maybe in that same time. So like it didn't take, by a year of me being here, there's like videos, and you would not think that I just came from Ethiopia a year ago. Like it's crazy. Yeah. I think kids they're very resilient, and it's just like that's the new situation. Okay.
It's like a sponge as well. Like they just take it in.
100%. Yeah.
When was the point where you were like, nah, I need to know? What I'm sensing is like, there's almost like you're going through life as a kid, into your teens, and there's this probably, I guess, there's like this hole,
Yeah.
and where you feel like you're different to everybody else because everyone can talk about their grandparents, they can talk about their family history, and they know it. And
Yeah.
they can embrace it.
Yeah.
When were you were like, nah, I need to know. I need to like reconnect, or
It was in year 7 that I thought that, as I was like, okay, no, I really, like, there's an emptiness in me. And I've always kind of been a very deep person. So I think my parents were kind of like, okay, this is not going to go away. Like,
Yeah.
she needs to find herself. So I went by myself back to Ethiopia.
in year 7.
Yeah, I had a little unaccompanied minor thing that I had to wear around me. And I went, at the time, I thought she was my sister. I went back to visit my sister and hopefully connect with her. And I remember I was at her house and I was learning the language as well. Like, my dad was like, okay, you can go back, because I missed out on a semester of, semester of school. And he was like, okay, you can go back and learn. So at the time I had like broken Amharic that I was speaking to my sister in. And I was asking her for photos of my mum and my dad and my grandma and things like that. And she turned and she said to me, I'm your mum. And then I remember thinking like, God, like, my Amharic is terrible. So I asked her again. I was like, no, I want some pictures of my mum so I can take home to like show my brothers. And then she said like, I'm your mum. And then I was like, what? And I think at that point, like, I thought I was like ready to learn all this information about myself.
No.
And I've never felt like more of a lost child in that moment, because I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
And I think also I was just like thinking in my head, like, I spent so many years like trying to get answers from whomever about like some sort of like picture of my mum or a name or something, and like, you have been conversating with me for like years as my sister, and you're my mum. It was
And
just
here you
like-
are meeting your mum for the first time, who you originally thought was your sister.
Yeah, and I'd met her on previous occasions as my sister. It was just this one time that I went by myself and she told me. And I remember I was like really angry, and I left Ethiopia without saying goodbye to her. I was just like, I need to get out of this place. Like, this is not the place. I didn't feel like home anymore. I just felt like it was a place of just lies and confusion for me. So I left, and then I came back and I told my mum what my biological mum had said. And then she surprised me even more and said, yeah, we kind of figured, we thought that. And so then I was like, what? Like, so everyone's been thinking this and no one's been telling me. And so it was just like I did stop the journey of like trying to find out, because in that moment I realized like I have to be ready mentally as well to accept that a lot of this is going to be people having to lie for certain reasons. Like, I need to be at peace with the idea that it's not all going to be like, oh, this is going to be a very fulfilling, wholeful, full circle moment for me. It's going to be like the truth, like what life is. Like, people make mistakes or say things or do things, and they've got the best intentions or whatever, but yeah.
The truth hurts, hey? Like,
Yeah.
it really, you think you're ready for it, and then I can't get over the fact that you was in year 7
Yeah.
and you went by yourself. Can you break down like the situation with your biological parents and your and moving to Australia? Like, was there a lot of civil unrest in Ethiopia at the time? Can you break that down for us?
I think there was a lot of famine and poverty.
Right.
And that was the circumstance with my mum. My mum was 16 when she had me. And then when Gideon, my biological brother, came along, she was 17, and her family were like, no. Like, I think her own mum had a kid that was the same age as me. So, yeah, she was really young, and their family, like, already had a lot of kids. So she decided to give us up, and she wanted to give us up together. My biological dad actually wanted to keep my brother, and she refused. She said, no, if they're going to go, they have to go together.
Yeah. That's very wise.
I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
Because my brother's like literally my best friend. So, and I
So
would
cool.
not have been able to do this journey without him. So like, that was a great thing that she did for me. But yeah, so they couldn't look after us and that's why they gave us up.
Of course. Yeah.
For adoption.
Yeah. It's an incredible
During that
story to
time.
hear. And yeah, just I'm sure there's like a lot of parts of your life where you were kind of searching for. Were you ever like in your head prior to meeting your biological mum, like imagining the perfect moment when you would be reconnected?
100%. Like I dreamt it every single day. Like I just thought, and that's why I think I was also a little bit disappointed in myself, because I was given the moment and it was like, oh, I didn't act the way that I thought, you know? And in hindsight, like me having experienced everything now, like if I was ever in that moment, I would have reacted so differently. It wouldn't have been so hurtful. I think I would have like embraced her and just thought it was a lovely moment. But yeah, because I'd imagined it so vividly as if I had already experienced it, when it
magical
came
moment. Yeah.
as something else, I was like, no, this is not it. Like,
Yeah.
this is not. No. And so I just shut it down completely. Whereas like when I came back and I told my brother Gideon, he was like ecstatic. He was just so happy. Like he didn't care that it was a lie. He just was happy that he had someone that he knew was his mum.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it wasn't like some sort of mystery. He knew exactly who she was. And he ended up going in year 10 and spending like the same whole term just with her, like living with
That's so
her.
cool.
And they like bonded and have like great memories. But yeah.
Did you get to a eureka moment where it's like, where you kind of connected all the pieces of the puzzle? Where it's like, I understand now. Like,
I think, yeah, definitely when I had Zahara, it was a moment of clarity for myself, my adoption, my own process of the adoption, and my understanding, like forgiving my mum and both mums. And yeah, that was definitely a moment for me where I understood the sacrifice, because I was in a situation, because I had no idea about Zahara and because she just came into my life, there was like, you know, an opportunity, or like just in the back of everyone's conversation around it after like I discovered that I had a kid, where it was like, there are other options. It was like that kind of discussion. And I remember thinking like, fuck no. Are you kidding? Like, that's my kid. And I could never do it. But just understanding like, oh, wow, like in that moment, like the connection that you have with your kid, it's a huge thing to say, hang on, I'm not able to give this child the life that she or he deserves or could like prosper into something great. And I'm taking, like, that's a very selfless moment. Like, I'm taking my ego out of it. I'm taking it all away and like letting this child have.
Letting this child have that.
And so I think
opportunity.
when I had Zazie, I was just so grateful for that sacrifice that my mum made.
Yeah.
And I think I just forgave her instantly. It was just a moment where
It's almost like you were able to like put yourself in your mother's shoes.
Yeah, and
be
it's a scary thing. Like,
Yeah.
especially like she was 16, you know? I was 23 and I felt like I was like a little kid. When I had Zahara in my hands, I was just like, you know, this is a scary thing to embark on a journey that like, because I don't really compare myself to many people. So it's like, it's a journey that I've never been on before and that I don't see anybody ever doing it like me. So it was just like an unknown, like a completely, and then you just think like this child, like I'm responsible for this child forever.
Yeah.
Until the day that I die.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing.
It is.
To think that. And then like not knowing that this child is coming into your life. So I was not prepared whatsoever.
I want to go back to your upbringing quickly, because I think there's like a few moments in your life that it's really important to unpack.
Yeah.
During high school years and just feeling different, because obviously living in Australia, there's different cultures, there's different ways of living, and you've reconnected, so you know a bit of your background, but is there still that feeling of you're a bit of an outsider or different, or how did you manage that?
Yeah, I think because of the way that I spoke, people were just like, oh, you're Australian. you know? Like I
Yep.
didn't have an accent, or I didn't speak in a way that they, like what I look like, they would assume that I would speak.
Right.
And so a lot of the, like when they would look at me, people would be like, oh, where are you from? And then I would say, obviously, I was born in Ethiopia, but I came here when I was 3. I've lived here my whole life. And then they would be like, oh, you're Australian. But it's like, you wouldn't have asked me where I was from if you thought I was Australian, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like this constant thing, like, am I
Yeah.
Tom? Or like, what's happening here?
Yeah,
Like,
so
I'm so confused.
how do you
like-
feel about that sort of question? Is it like something you took slight to, or because me and Dylan
Yeah.
broke this down a while ago? It's like coming from our background. I grew up. Everyone would be like, "But where are you really from?" You know, and it's like, I was born here, got Australian
Yeah.
passport. You know, like I speak saying like I only know English.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm still perceived as being different.
Yeah.
And there's 30 of us, and I'm still.
It's like an issue of being like accepted.
Yeah. And I think like that experience in itself is very different to mine. Like I think it may have been harder because for me, when people were like, where are you from? I knew I wasn't from here. Like I knew I wasn't born
Right.
here. So it was kind of like, yeah, I'm not from here, but
Yeah.
I live here now sort of thing. So it kind of, it took the hurt, like the sting away.
Okay.
Because I was like, yeah, I'm from a country that's not from here.
Yeah.
But I think like for my younger brother who was born here, but his like parents are Ethiopian, he was explaining the same thing. It hurts because you're from here, like
Yeah.
you were born here. This is all you've ever known. So
Yeah.
hearing it was, I think it's a little bit harsher for him.
Mm.
But yeah, it's still the same. It's still damaging. Like
Yeah.
you're constantly reminded that you're different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're a kid, you don't want to be different. You want to fit in. Like, you know, I had curly hair and like I would get my mum like to just try to braid it down or like I just wanted to look like everyone, but I never was like that growing up. Like my mum would tell me like until I went to primary school, you know, I liked being different. Like I would, when people would ask me that question when I was like 4 or 5, I'd say like, I'm from Ethiopia. It's the most beautiful, you know, I would like be
Yeah.
very proud of where I was from.
That's a really important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's just, it changes because it just like, they break you down.
Yeah.
So it's soon you're like, oh, maybe I'm not meant to be proud of something. that
Yeah.
I'm different.
What sort of cultural differences did you notice? Like, how connected do you feel to your Ethiopian culture versus the culture you're living in and were raised in?
Well, growing up, I didn't feel connected at all, but I used to go out of my way to like do things in the Habesha community here.
That's good.
Like I would go to church every Sunday because I just like being around the language and hearing. And I would, anytime there was like parties or weddings, like I had a few elderly people that my mum helped my mum when we first came here,
Right.
that I would like message and ask to come because like I was just always looking for that connection growing
Yeah.
up. So I used to go a lot like in primary school and in high school
Yeah.
to do those kind of things. But it was weird because when I would go to the Habesha things, everyone saw me as Australian. Like even the Habeshas, you know, they're like, you're not from here, you know, you're not from, but like none of them were born in Ethiopia
Yeah,
or
right.
anywhere. So I'm like, I'm
I was
born
born-
there.
yeah, yeah.
You know, like you guys aren't even born there. How am I not Habesha? They're like, you have white parents. So it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like you got to pick your battles. Like I'd rather them give me like shit because you know it's not the same. It's not with like that same nastiness as
Okay.
like people that
Is it more of a
where I
teasing?
where I grew up being like you're not from here.
Yeah, okay.
It's different.
I've always felt like Ethiopian culture very welcoming.
Yeah, they are.
They're
They
very
are.
community driven, like love community, love being together. So
And they're proud of their culture, you know.
100%.
So it's I always opted to be around that
Mm.
because yeah, I think I needed to be more proud of where I came from and not so grateful.
yeah.
And I don't know, just like lucky.
And what about the Australian side? Did you find a struggle, like kind of balancing both? Like,
I have no memory of like if it was ever a struggle.
okay,
It was just like for me, it came very naturally. Like I just adapted, and that was it. You know.
Do you think that's like kind of in your personality, just adapt?
Yeah, I think
move?
so. You just with that kind of I wouldn't say traumatic, but with that huge event of being adopted and coming here, it's just like resilient. You're just like on that. You just clicked it in, and from then forth, you're just surviving sort of mode. But yeah, I never was like, oh, this is a difficult culture to connect with or anything, because there's no like, besides sports and like, there's no real culture that's like would clash with me. You know,
definitely.
There's nothing, and my family, funnily enough, is like. Even though they're not Habesha, they're like they raised me kind of like Habesha, because we're from a big family. So we're always together. Like we always did everything together. It's like very family oriented where I grew up in.
Yep.
And it's not, and they're so aware of like just the world and my experience and the way, you know, things are, and open to understanding that kind of stuff.
Yep.
That it only felt weird when I was out.
Yeah.
And I was very rarely out. Like where I'm from, in the community that I'm from, like you just hang out with people that, you know, like I've hung out with the same people that I've been from primary school and still do.
Yeah, that's...
Like, you know, like they don't really venture. I was the only girl in my group that ventured like to the city or out.
Yeah.
Like they just stayed in the 3 blocks of
okay.
that suburb.
Right.
So, yeah. They just all know each other.
I think your culture and your upbringing kind of fused together so well that it's given you this rounded, how do I say, like ability to just keep moving forward. And you touched on it before, being resilient. Like, do you think, so growing up, knowing that you're adopted, did you ever connect with others that have been adopted? Did you ever like feel like you had like a bond with them, like automatically, just because they come from that same sort of experience as you?
Yeah, 100%. Growing up, we had like an adopted group where all the mums and dads that had adopted Ethiopian kids around Australia would all get together, and it would be like, I don't know, like a yearly thing. I don't know. We used to have calendars. I can't remember it. But it stopped like when I was in primary school, like mid-primary school. But I have heaps of adopted, well, not heaps, but like a handful of adopted Ethiopian friends here that live here.
Interesting.
And I feel very connected to them because it's a very unique kind of...
Do you think they have that same perspective you have of being resilient, being able to manage all these different areas, all these ups and downs of life? Do you think they have that same?
I think they do, but in terms of understanding their adoption and their identity and like processing that what's happened to them, I don't think so, no. I think I know that a lot of them have come to me and asked me like, how did you find this clarity? How did you find the forgiveness, let go of the resentment and the anger? And like, I'm not going to tell everybody go have a kid because that was my own process. But I do want to open up that discussion of being like, it really just takes everyone that is involved to be selfless and just understanding and empathetic of both of like, because I know a lot of the adopted kids come with like, this is what is owed to me, you know, I've been having this sacrifice of just like blocking it out my whole life. The least you guys could do was come with, you know, some sort of understanding or, I don't know, I think.
What would you say to somebody that's struggling with it? Like, how would you kind of, because I always feel like it's hard to give advice or some sort of support to somebody that hasn't been through, well, if I was to give advice to someone that I haven't experienced what they've experienced, I feel very like out of place in trying to speak my mind, because one thing I think is important is like, you don't know what that person is going through and how they're managing it and dealing with it. So to kind of project project what you think is beneficial for them, I feel like that can be a bit, it can be a bit distasteful to their situation,
Yeah.
like almost tone deaf to how they feel.
Yeah, I get that.
Something I hear a lot is like, what do you know about my struggle? Like, but when somebody has that same struggle and you guys can bond over that, I think that's so important for moving forward. Like knowing someone that's been adopted and been through, like even in Ethiopia, came to Australia, just knowing that gives you that, I guess, confidence or reassurance that, hey, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
And other people deal with these things too. And that's why I commit, like, praise to you for speaking up on this, because it's going to help a lot of people pick apart what you've been able to do, be resilient, do all these things and move forward if they haven't already.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool of you to express that.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult journey for people to go on. And I think my advice would be make sure that you're mentally ready to go down that road, because it's never what it seems. And even if your family situation is not full of lies like mine was, I think as adopted kids, we hold lots of, we just hold lots of hope and power in when you find them or you find a family member, like your identity is whole, like you'll know who you are. And I think as I've gotten older and as I've got more answers, like I've realized that identity is really not just where you're from and your family. Like it's a multitude of things. It's your experience. It's like the struggles, it's everything. It's not just, and I think when you realize that, it's a very freeing moment. So you're more open to receiving information because it's not so like what happened to me when you have that information with my mum. It's more kind of like you're understanding it as a fluid thing of, okay, this is a part of this is just one part of my identity, and there's so many other things, and there's going to be more things to come. Like now I'm not so sure, like my identity is constantly growing. It's constantly evolving as I live,
And that perspective and that hindsight that you have, I think is going to be so helpful for a lot of people. It's like that your identity is always changing, and just because of your past doesn't mean that's going to be your future. And taking that on board and moving forward, knowing that your identity can constantly change, that's really empowering. Like just knowing that the next day I can be better than who I was yesterday, or those sort of things. Like I think that's huge for a lot of people that have been through the same sort of experiences as you.
Yeah.
Amazing. One other thing that is a difficult segue, but when we spoke on the phone, you kind of touched on it, is that understanding moment that you had when you had Zahara, and you were finally able to it felt like you kind of connected the last piece of the puzzle of your identity.
Yeah.
When you became a mother. First off, so becoming a mother, in all the trials and tribulations you have to go through in dealing with that, you've got quite a unique pregnancy story, right? So can you take us through that?
Well, I flew to Sydney for an audition, and I wasn't feeling like the best, but I did my audition. It was in the morning, and then that afternoon I was having like a celebratory dinner with my friend that I went to acting school with, and then I was like, he was like, let's go out, and then I was like, I'm like really not feeling well. I should probably go home, and so I went home. I still didn't feel well all night, and then the next day I managed to get out of bed, and I was just like, something is really not right with me, and my friend, I was staying with my friend, and my friend was like, let's go to the beach. You'll feel better after the beach. So we went to the beach, and then I didn't feel good still. So she took me, and by that stage, like down here was like a bit swollen up, and I thought, oh, fuck, I probably erupt. Like there's probably my appendix situation going on here. I was in excruciating pain, and it was like, I don't know, like 6:30 or 7 at that time. And so she dropped me to the like emergency hospital, and then they thought it was my appendix. And then I think she decided to, what happened? I think she may have decided to like do a urine test or something. I don't know. And then, yeah, I think it was. I never really go back and remember step by step. And then
Something you don't want to relive.
no, I just, yeah, it was just kind of like...
It happened so quick?
Yeah, I never spoke about it really as much. And then she was like, you're pregnant. Oh, no, actually, they were all like student doctors at the time. And I could just see them whispering and like everyone was a bit scared. Like one person would go in and he'd turn back around. And then I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like I was like swearing at this point because I was just in pain. And then they had my legs up, and then they were like, yeah, so you're having a baby and we have to put you in the ambulance and take you to the hospital now.
Far out.
And then I was like, what? Like, you guys said it was my appendix. What the fuck? And then, can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
And then I was in the ambulance, and honestly, these two like men that put me in the ambulance, the ambulance people, I will never, like, I don't know where they are in the world, but they were the most incredible guys. Like at that time I was like freaking out, like, oh my God, like the pain had, like it was in the back of my mind, and I was just like in shock of having a baby. So like for that brief ambulance ride, I was just like, what the fuck, I'm having a baby. And these two men were just like, breathe, you're okay, you're going to be an incredible mum, like this is what was meant to happen. Like just like nicest, most like...
You kind of felt like what they were saying is what you needed at that time.
Yeah, it was just crazy. I didn't even know these men. Like, you know, they could have just been like, oh, this is another crazy person. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't know me. They didn't, you know my situation. And then, like, they just lifted me up. And I feel like because of them, like, I could actually give birth. Right. And I gave birth that morning. So I went in, I got an epidural, and then I fell asleep. After the epidural, I was all G. I was like, yes, no more pain. Right. So I fell asleep, and then I woke up at like 7, and then I told one of the nurses, like, yeah, I'm ready to have the baby. And then I had the baby at 7:30.
Jesus. What a absolute warrior, honestly.
Yeah, this was in Sydney. And then I had to call my mum and say I had a baby. And you can imagine that conversation. My mum was like, what?
Did she think you were hiding it from her?
No, she thought that I had like a miscarriage because I was with her the whole time. So I was like living with her, like she could see me. I was like in bathers literally like the 2 weeks before. So she didn't think, like, she just thought I had a miscarriage. And so she was like saying to me, oh, it's okay, like this is very common, this happens, like you'll be fine. Like like they'll just probably...
Is this on the phone in Sydney?
Yeah, I was in the hospital with the baby in my hand.
And she's thinking you have a miscarriage?
Yeah, so I didn't realise that she thought I had a miscarriage, and then till she was like, you know, the nurses will take care of like the baby and everything. You don't have to worry about it. Like, just come back and we'll look after you. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, the baby's alive. I've got the baby in my hand. And then she was like, just hung up. Nothing. And then I was like, what? And then she called me back like, what? You have a baby? And then I was like, yes, that's what I've been telling you. Like, I have a baby. And then she was like, yeah, she was in shock.
It's honestly that, because we just came from our cousin's house, who they've just had a newborn. And they were telling us all like the stories, and we've kind of been on the journey with them because, you know, we know the girl from, they're engaged and all. And, you know, she's gone through the pregnancy journey, but you just went from 0 to 100.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, you had no preparation. You had no idea of what was about to happen to you. How do you just mentally switch on like, oh, I'm a mother now?
I think it's that same resilience of just being like, It was not like it wasn't. And I think for me, like I've been raising my little brother. I've done heaps of like I've always looked after kids. I love kids, and at the end of the day, to have my own kid, I was very happy. You know, like it was a shock, but it was also a moment that I've dreamt about for years. I just did not think I was going to be 23 and like not know that I had a kid. So for me, it was just, I didn't let myself feel like, oh, fuck, I've got a kid, I can't do this. It was not like, I let myself feel like that in the ambulance, and the moment that I gave birth to her, I was like, this is my kid, and we're going to make it, regardless.
I had this crazy correlation that I just made. Like, in your story, that, like, things went from 0 to 100 really quick. Like, meeting your mum, it was like, oh, it's my sister, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, it's my mum.
Yeah.
And you've just switched. And now you've had a child. It's the same scenario, just in a different way.
100%. And I'm almost certain that my mum probably experienced the same journey. Like when she was 16 and having a kid, like, you know, it was probably a huge shock for her to have a kid that young.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's where, like, when I gave birth to Zahara, it was just kind of like I felt the strength of my mum, my biological mum, and I just knew, like, this is something that I can do, and this is something that I've been doing. So
Incredible.
yeah, why not?
Do you know what this pregnancy type of pregnancy is called? Like,
No, I have
didn't
no
find out?
idea.
Oh
But
my God.
I know. I should have. Sam, can I call a friend? Sam knows. But when I came back, one girl that I went to school with, I was saying, same thing happened to her, but she was in high school, and it happened at home. But yeah, so I know a few people, and then like heaps of people reached out to tell me about other people that it happened to.
do you know if this is a common thing, or is it really rare? And like, is this like something that happens?
I don't think it's very common.
It's not common at all, is
No,
it? And
I think it's rare.
does the baby usually come out healthy and
I don't know. I'm not too sure. I just know when I had, like, my whole giving birth experience was
Just a flash.
very funny. Like, really just like, yeah. My doctor, I had training doctors as well, and then like a main doctor. And I think she was just trying to make light of the situation because she obviously had heard from the grapevine, from the nurses, like, this girl had no idea she was having a baby. Like, now she's having a baby. So when she came in to, like, check if the baby was okay, there was, like, about 16 people in the room. I didn't go into theatre. Like, I had the baby in just a room.
Okay.
But there was so many people in there because no one knew what the baby was like, if the baby was going to be healthy, if it, no one knew. So everyone was just on standby. So I, like, gave birth in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And in the moment, my doctor just was like, oh, the baby's got red hair. And I remember just like laughing because it was just such a weird moment. But she was trying to, like, ice break the whole situation because everyone was kind of like, is it alive? What's happening? And she was like,
trying to ice,
trying
to
and
break the
I
ice.
was looking at her like, what the hell? Like, where am I? What is this? But yeah, then they were like, oh, it's really healthy, very healthy placenta, one of the healthiest placentas. Do you want to keep it? I was like, oh no, man, I'm just getting over the fact that I'm having a kid. Let me just take it one step at a time. And then she was like, do you want to cut the umbilical cord? I was like, again, no, I'm just give me the baby and then we'll deal with everything else.
Be on our way.
No, it wasn't like that,
I
people.
want to see any of you again. Hey, is this right? Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes.
A cryptic pregnancy?
I don't know.
Am I saying that word? Cryptic. Is that the ring
I never actually, I don't know.
care.
No. I got told it so many
That was
times.
bigger, yeah.
I got told it so many times, but I think I was just like, literally in that time, I would just take one day at a time, like one moment at a time.
Yep.
And that's kind of just how I, like,
It's
focused.
crazy. You know what I find
on it.
ironic? Like, is because you're an actress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her life is like a movie.
100%.
Like, her life is like,
100%.
I think you could retire. I think
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's life is like this, no? Everyone's life is full of these of
Definitely.
crazy
Yeah.
events.
And this is why we've got the podcast, because
Yeah.
you know, everyone's got a story to tell, and everyone goes through this roller coaster of what we call life. You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're one example of many, but it's just it's crazy to
I
hear.
gotta say though, like at an early age, I don't know if I was ever searching. Like you and your brother seem to be at such a young age. You were already investigating.
Yeah.
You already put on that, and you're already searching for like you've got a puzzle. You were just, you know.
Yeah.
Existed, and there's a puzzle in front of you, and you're trying
Constantly.
To figure it out. It's like we need to know where we came from. We need to know. That's like one of the first questions that we need to have answered. And,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. I think it also was a lot easier for us to delve into that because, like, we were completely different people. We spoke a different language. We had different names. Like, I kept my name, but my brother had a different name. Like, everything, we have different birthdays. Everything about us had changed. Like, they changed everything about us. So we knew that, like, there was something else.
So you're on your birth certificate.
Yeah.
Is not your actual birthday.
No. I've got 3 birthdays.
3.
Right.
Yes.
That's like Canary, isn't he the same?
Yeah. It's like...
He was 18 before he was really 18.
I think it's a common thing.
Like, this guy should be out. This guy's actually like 16.
Very common, I think.
3 birthdays.
Yeah.
You celebrate 3 times a year?
I celebrate one birthday.
You're really like 30
Yeah.
or 40 years old.
No, I've got like 3 different
dates.
Yeah. So I don't actually know the day that I was born. But yeah, because the calendar also in Ethiopia is a different calendar.
Okay.
And they don't celebrate birthdays. It's not something, it's part of the culture.
Right.
You celebrate the day that you were born, and then from then on, they don't really keep track of age or your birthday, nothing.
Really?
It's not, yeah.
I didn't know
think
that.
It's just not a thing.
What is your surname?
My adopted surname? Forward.
And
Forward is your surname.
Forward, like walking
What?
forward. Yeah, Forward.
how poetic. How poetic.
I never really thought about that.
How poetic, huh?
Kalkidan's just like
Who's going to play you in your movie?
My daughter, Zahara.
Oh!
if I said anybody,
She's already got it.
firstly, if I said anybody else, she'd be like, she is like so dramatic. She's very, yeah. She's
I've
like
seen
unique.
glimpses of it. Yeah.
No, but do you know your original?
Yeah, I do. So in Ethiopia, you take your dad's first name as your last name. So my dad's name is Tesfaye. So my name is Kalkidan Tesfaye.
No middle name.
Yeah, I do have a middle name, China.
Oh, I
That's
like
why
that.
my name is Kalkidan China on my social media.
Oh, right.
But yeah, but Kalkidan China. And it's not like a middle name, it's more like a nickname over there. And it's because I looked Chinese when I was a baby. So they would call me China.
New name for you now.
Yeah.
China.
But I just go for it.
What does Kalkidan mean?
It means God's promise to earth. I'm not joking. I was like, don't say anything. I swear.
I was like, this guy.
God's promise to Earth to keep moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, honestly. I kind of lost my train of thought now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Like, you've obviously had an incredible journey. Like, you may not think so, but to us, it's definitely an incredible journey. Like, obviously, an early experience was maybe just searching
Yeah.
for an answer, and then trying to figure out your identity, and then you're just trying to pursue your goals and ambitions, and then you got hit with this unexpected pregnancy. You're now a mother, so now you have to overcome this challenge of you're learning to be a mother now like that.
Yeah.
There was no preparing for it. Out of all of these very unique experiences, what would you say is the most confronting for you?
Deep.
I never really thought about that. I think the most confronting was becoming a mother because it just put a lot in perspective for me. It also came at a time where I was very close to getting a TV show that was on Netflix, and it was like just a moment where everything, like my whole life was just put on hold. And I just, like coming to terms with and making myself feel happy about that choice of like, okay, no, now I'm going to embark on the journey of being a mother, and I'm not going to be a mother with resentment or a mother that makes my child feel like they should be grateful that I gave. Like, I want to move into this journey as honest and as open, and the only way that I could do so was just realizing that I can learn a lot more from her than I could ever teach her. So I was just very open to the idea that this child is going to teach me a lot about myself and a lot about life. And so I just embraced her wholeheartedly for 2 years. But yeah, so I think the journey of becoming a mother, I had to not only come to terms with that being put on hold, my career, but also I was like witnessing almost myself as a child, and it like the whole journey of being adopted and being 3 and watching my daughter at the age of 3 and how aware of herself she was, how sure of herself, how much she knew who her mum, her dad, her family were, how well she spoke English, and knowing that that could have been me, and then I had to go to another country and pretend none of it ever happened to me. So like her 3rd year was like a very difficult year for me, because it was just kind of like, oh my God, like I'm not just this little kid. I can see this person in front of me, and like I think people really underestimate children, you know? They're not so little and naive, and it's not so easy to forget those kind of things or give those things up. Like I don't think I could have sent Zahara off at that age to another country and told her to call another person mum or dad or learn another language. Like it would break her because of the bond that like she had with not just me, with everybody in her life. And I would assume that I had a very similar bond with people. So it was a very difficult time for me to see that, but also like I think it also just closed the chapter for me. It was just kind of like a moment where I was like, okay, that happened to me and I can see it now. It's not like this idea of what was I like or what would I have been thinking, or what I could see it through my daughter. And it just, it was almost just like beautiful that I could have a kid and help her and keep her and like see her through that time and just enjoy being her mum and living like I was 3 as well. Like I just explored my childhood again through her. Like I let myself be like a 1 and a 2 and a 3-year-old and just experience it, which I think most adults should. Just like don't close the door off to like the child within you. I think it's really important that we delve in and find that in ourselves. And
that's an incredible revelation you kind of had. Like I love how you put it. Like you can close the chapter on that. Like seeing your daughter at 3 was kind of like that last like aha moment. Where you could just be like, it's almost like all that you have experienced. It was kind of like, okay, it's in a place somewhere that is healthy.
Yeah, and also I saw, you know, how happy she was. So it wasn't this unknown sort of thing. It was like I may have not been as happy as she was, but I got to see it through the lens of that positive, like through her and how her character and how vibrant she was and how much of a beautiful person she was. And knowing that I was probably very similar and I possess these same attributes as an adult, that I was like, okay, it's not something that was like stolen from me. It's an experience that happened, and that's it. It doesn't define me. It's not something that's going to be looming over me any longer. And it's not something that I'm going to be told I was lucky about. It was, you know, it happened to me. It's like an experience. It's not.
It's an incredible perspective shift that you had. Yeah, it's incredible that. Would you say that's the main perspective shift that you had as becoming a mum? Is almost this two-way street of learning in a two-way street manner. So like, you know, you're not just teaching somebody, you're also, you know, learning about yourself through
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zazie has honestly taught me so much about myself, and yeah, I encourage parents to have that perspective that your child can teach you just as much as you can offer them, because I know that growing up, and I love the way I was raised, but growing up it was very much like my parents knew everything, they were the right, and so I always looked at them as perfect people. And so when they did do something, you know, when we did have a fight or an argument, they have so far to fall, and it just keeps, resentment just stays there. Whereas like I understood that feeling for me, and I remember thinking I never want my daughter to think I'm perfect and that I have all the answers or that I know everything. But obviously, like, you create boundaries, so I'm not going to be like, yeah. But I think it's just so important to understand that, like, it doesn't matter the age of these people in your life, especially children. Like, you can just learn so much about just forgiveness, about love, like unconditional love, about yourself, like the way you look at the world, and like your own confidence and self-worth.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's a good feeling.
And there's another area that I think is key, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, is co-parenting.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
Co-parenting.
Yes, we're going to touch on that. I feel
Yeah.
like the way, my perspective and from the outside looking in, I'm like, you know, it feels like you guys got a great understanding between each other and a respect for each other, which is really cool to see. Because my parents divorced, like when I have no memory of my parents ever being in the same room. And so I don't, like, when I do see them in the same room where it has happened and I'm older, I feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something
That's understandable though.
but it's, I've gotten over that and I'm actually at peace with it. So now, like, it took some time, and definitely as growing up, I hated it. Just the drop-offs, like I would go to dad's on the weekends, dad would drop us off back at mum's, and that was just something I dreaded as a kid, just that car ride home or something like that.
Yeah. Because of the division of the situation?
The division, it was new. There was a bit of angst. There's some bad blood between them both as well. And there was a lot of things. But I feel like, you know, co-parenting is becoming so common in today's day and age. How would you describe your co-parenting style with Adam?
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
When I was telling Adam I'm talking about co-parenting, he was like, "Oh, please don't say anything crazy." I was like, I'm going to say it was a journey. It's been a journey.
But that's the truth, you know.
It was not always easy. Like, it was really difficult. I think if you had told me 5 years ago that I was going to be in the place that I am in right now with him, I would have said impossible. Like, I think when I found out that I had Zazie, I remember texting Adam saying, like, I need to meet with you. I've got something to tell you. And then it literally, I think it was on the day of his 21st. So Adam was 21, I was 23. Like, he was young. So, like, his own experience of that is, like, intense for him. So I remember I told him, you know, I've had a baby, and he straight away said, like, oh, like, we should get married, because culturally that's the right thing to do, you know?
Right.
And, like, firstly I was like, no, definitely not. But I didn't mean, like, no because I don't love him or I didn't like him. I just meant no because, and which I explained to him, like, I'm about to embark on a journey of being a mother, and you're about to embark on a journey of being a father, and then soon we'll both embark on being co-parents, and there is no room for us to also have a relationship. And I think in that, like, if we did go down that road, our daughter would be the person that would probably lose the most, because I'd never been, like, we were never together. And like, you have to learn new things about each other, you know. It was just a lot of pressure on somebody that was 21 and 23. And I thought, like, for us, like, we really need to be focusing on ourselves and our own journeys, because that's also a thing. Like, my journey as a mum, like, I had to start that off before I started the journey of being parents. Like, I really focused 2 years on what kind of mum I wanted to be and what kind of mum that Zahara needed. And I encouraged Adam to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then we started, like, delving into, like, how we wanted to work as as a couple, as parents. And we're constantly exploring that. Like, you know.
And I think that's
ever evolving.
Yeah, it's a journey, like you said.
Yeah.
Is there a key thing that, you know, people really need to get?
Yeah, it's the ego. The ego has to go. There's no ego in this kind of space. Like, I don't know more than Adam. Adam doesn't know more than me. Right. And our main objective is, like, everything, like, it's for Zahara. Like, the purpose is to be there as a support for Zahara.
Yeah.
And there's no room for us to be selfish or to make any kind of, just not make that journey any difficult than it has to be, because it's already a difficult process. And so I think, like, there were so many times where the universe tested both of us.
Yeah, that's my next question. That was going to be my next question. What kind of derailed you guys? Is it outside noise? Or
100% outside noise. But once you are confident, and that's what I like, once you form a unity, like Adam and I did, everybody else is like, other people around you are like, see your confidence, and then they're supportive.
Right.
But at the start, like, I was very unsure of the situation. I didn't know Adam's family. I knew Adam, like, a handful of times. I already knew, like, culturally, this is very two different worlds, because I was in that world. Like, I was in the Habesha. Like, I would go, like I said, as a kid and as a high school kid, like, to that space. But, like, my family don't know that world that well. So, and the way that they raise kids in both cultures is very different. Yeah. So I was very nervous. Like, I was extremely nervous, and I was given, like, advice and options of, you know, like, you don't have to have a relationship with Adam, and he doesn't have to have a relationship with your kid, and you can just move forward, you know, like that. And I was hearing it a lot, and it was hard because I was already feeling very protective of Zahara. And I just, in that, like, I think I was by myself and I was crying because, you know, it's very easy. And I was living with my parents, back with my parents at that time. Okay. So it's very easy to just, like, okay, this is the advice I'm getting given. Let's go down that road. You know, I don't really know Adam, blah, blah, blah. But I just had this moment where I was by myself, and one night, and I was looking at Zazie, and I just remember thinking, like, if this girl is anything like me, like, I have been on a pursuit to know my dad my whole life. And I found out about him when I was 18. And it was like, it's a lonely journey to go on. And if I have an opportunity where the father wants to be a part of her life, regardless of how difficult that journey might be, I'm going to opt yes. Yeah, right. So I told my family, no, this is something I want Adam to be a part of her life, and I want everybody to accept that. And regardless, even if I come to you at a day where I'm like, I'm done, don't listen to me, because I'm not done. Okay. Like, that's my goal.
Yeah.
My daughter will have a relationship with her dad, and that's what he deserves, and that's what she deserves, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
And so it just never got brought up again. Like even when we had our miscommunications, or where we had fights or misunderstandings, like it just, like the goal for my family, I'm sure it was the same for his family, was that we were going to be co-parents and we're going to be in each other's life, and that's the end.
Yeah.
So my family have as it's evolved, as our confidence and our relationship has grown, like more and more supportive. And like now I'm at a place where Adam comes over to my like mum and dad's house and chills, and they have a great relationship. And I just, honestly, I never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, wow.
Like, especially because like I'm the youngest of my dad's daughters, so my dad is very protective of me.
Right.
You know, like he's never seen me with any guys.
Yeah.
Any. So like, yeah, I
was-
just thought like, oh my God.
Again,
this is-
0 to 100.
yeah, this is never going to be enough. But now, you know, like everyone is lovely, and I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for it. Like I'm very thankful that we stood strong and in that. But
That's so mature of you to have that realization, like and it's funny that your story just always circles back to the beginning. Like it just like it comes full circle. Like
Yeah.
that the adoption phase of your life made you realize how important it was for Sahara to have a relationship with Adam. And you were so persistent in that working out, because you know how important it is for a child to have that connection, just for their soul and their spirit, and as they grow.
Yeah, and also like I knew that Adam and his family could offer Zahara a lot more than or just as much as I could offer her. Like the culture, everything about how they live and who they are, and you know, the Eritrean like identity, everything. Like that's something that's a part of her, regardless if she is has like a relationship with her dad or not. And that's something that I will never be able to teach her. And like it's very important that, and lots of other things, like there's so many attributes that Zahara has that is so similar to Adam.
Yeah.
And like only they like know like
Yeah.
how to communicate that.
Yeah.
And I'm like very like, it's a beautiful thing for me to sit back and see that.
Yeah.
And like it's just I feel blessed to like experience that and to see that in her.
Yeah.
And for her to like realize that about herself too. And I think it would have been a horrible thing for me for her to realize things about herself that aren't the same as me,
Yep.
and then not know where that came from, or not have any understanding of her, like a part of her that
That's
so
yeah. Do you have any questions on co-parenting? I know this is an interesting topic for you.
Co-parenting.
Yeah, I thought we've been, like, it's just so common in today's day and age, like, and you touched on it before, that drive for the parent to put the child first and make sure that, you know, both are on board for what's best for the child, and taking the egos out. I think something that you touched on there that's really impactful for people that may be going through that. What was the other thing you touched on there? There was another one, like taking the egos out, and I can't remember what you said. That realization how important it is to have both parents.
yeah.
Yeah. Just so when she grows older, that she isn't missing something, or it's like something that she's questioning. She knows, and she doesn't have to reconnect that part of her life.
Yeah, and knowing that the relationship of that Adam and I have created, of it's going to constantly be evolving. And I think something that I've like realized, despite how strong and how confident we are in what our relationship means, there's lots of people that find our relationship very odd, you know, and like people either don't believe that we haven't been together or don't trust that it's just a co-parenting situation. And I think having experienced that with like me dating somebody, and I changed like a lot. I changed a lot of my relationship with Adam to suit my partner at the time.
Right.
And I just like now coming out of the situation and like being able to debrief with Adam, I think there's a lot of parts of our relationship that we're just kind of like, oh, you know, like he's always joking around about things, and we're just like, I know that that's his personality. So, and we both know at the end of the day, there's nothing going to happen between us, and our priority is Zahara.
Yeah.
But for other people to see that don't know like the situation and how long this relationship, it's over 5 years that we've formed this trust and understanding of where each other's boundaries are. It's like, it's unspoken. We know we don't have to communicate it, but for people looking in, I think it causes a lot of like, and I was never, because I've never been put in a situation to question it. When it came to me in that form, I think I was kind of like, oh, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
Oh, I can easily change this. I won't do so much.
Yeah.
Because I hang out with them. You know, if I can, I will hang out with them or do things. Even when I don't have Zahara, I will spend time with them. And it just made my partner at the time very uncomfortable that I would be hanging out.
Right.
And he just didn't understand. He would thought like, oh, like you're just doing it.
Yeah.
It's not for Zahara. You're doing it for him. But because I wasn't confident in the fact that I'm like, no, I'm doing it because it's important for my daughter to see her mum and dad together.
Yeah.
And it's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
And it's not to be looked at in any other way. I changed a lot of that kind of behavior, and I didn't hang out with them for ages during that time. And I think I'd advise, like, if you're co-parenting and you're not together and you're having having relationships
outside.
Outside, to just be very open and honest with like your understanding of your relationship and secure in that.
Yeah.
And not
establishing the boundaries.
Yeah, and not that you're kind of diminishing your partner's feelings towards what they might be perceiving, but so that you kind of are reassuring that person, like, no, this is it. Because I think when you try to change things that you already know is a solid thing, or that, like, I've had an experience, like, I've built this relationship for 5 years, so I know it's a solid thing.
Right.
It kind of makes the person feel uneasy at the situation. So yeah, that was the first time where I actually I kind of undid a lot of my work that I'd been doing for 5 years with Adam in that moment. And I think now that I've experienced that, I'm like, okay, I'm learning more things about how to co-parent better, and that how to rely on Adam a bit more with the support when you're in that situation, and vice versa. If he ever finds somebody, like, now that I've experienced something like that, I would know exactly how to
move.
Yeah, and just because we're such good friends, and like I see him as like a very good friend of mine, like I call him not to do with parenting stuff, like just to make the other person in that your co-parent's life comfortable. Yeah. You just create these boundaries at the start, I think, that allows it to be a little bit more like eased in.
See, I have a completely different story on that. Like, if my mum and dad got on the phone with each other, it's to yell. Really? And like, for Zahara to see her parents just like get along like that, I think that's so huge for her. Coming from someone that has seen their parents, you know, kind of headbutt quite a lot. Yeah. As a child, you kind of feel a bit like a burden because you know they're only fighting about you.
Yeah, that's so true.
Otherwise, why would they even be fighting? Like, if it wasn't for me and my brother, they wouldn't, like, their relationship would have ended and that's it. But because of us, they're bonded, and every time they do get to interact, it's this tug of war, friction. So yeah, one thing I want to say is like it's so important for her to see that.
Yeah.
Just that the friendliness. It's she has support.
I think at times it's a little bit confusing for her. I remember when she was like in kindy, when she started seeing like other parents, she asked me like, why aren't you and dad together?
Yeah, wow.
Because it's just like she always sees us always happy and to get like, you know, she just didn't understand like, and because she's never seen us together
And your answer
throughout
to
her
that?
whole life. I just told her like I love him, but he's not my person. Like I just believe that some people are in your life to create beautiful moments and people like Zahara, and like I'll always like he'll always be like I'll always be loyal to him and like thankful for everything that he gave me with Zahara. But like I just know that like he's not somebody that
Yeah.
I romantically am with. So I just tried to explain like I love your dad, but
Yeah.
he's not my person.
Maybe she'll
It's
understand.
fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but it seems like it's almost as if we're programmed from an early age to have two parents together. Like even a similar thing happened with my my oldest brother because he's co-parenting
Yeah.
his daughter, and there was one moment when he went to go pick up his daughter Mia,
Yeah.
and Mia's like she's really little.
She's 2. Isn't she 2?
love
She's
the
2
name.
years old, right?
Yeah, two.
And to be yeah, go on.
Two, and she. So Luke goes to pick up Mia, puts her in the car, and then Mia goes to her mom like, "Mom, come." Like, Mom, get in the car.
Yeah. No.
They're like, no, it doesn't work like that.
So what? They had to have the conversation to
No,
her
she's
as a
2 years
2-year-old.
old,
I'm
but I
like, how did
think,
you delve into that?
How old was she when you had that?
Well, Zahara's always, she's never seen us together. So it was never it's like being adopted, you know, you never question it. So 'cause she's never seen us together, so she never assumed that we were together. She just accepted that I'm dad and like she's his dad, I'm mum. It was not until she saw, when she went to kindy, like to school, and she saw like 2 people together dropping kids, and then she was kind of like,
Made the connection.
why aren't you guys together?
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, because like we always, like we still did things when she was little and when she was a baby, we did lots of things together all the time. So like she would see us like in the same car together, or I would be at his house, he would be at mine. Like we did things together a lot. But it was not until she saw like them drop-offs and like marriage and like on YouTube and things like that, I think she realized like, oh, like people are together in one house and together with multiple children. So she was kind of like, what's happening here?
Far out.
Yeah.
Kalk, it's I feel like if I was to summarize your story, I think I don't know where to start, but I would say like it comes full circle, hey? Like everything you've talked about here has kind of connected in some way to something else that will come in your life, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, how would you define the moral of your story?
Oh, shivers. The moral of my story.
Can I go first?
Yes.
Can I?
maybe. I'm
I
like-
think.
Let's go around the table.
Yeah, let's go around the table. I think you brought it up, and I think it's a resilience.
Yeah, I was about to say resilience
Yeah.
or just not giving up and not like, you're not defined by a moment or an action or, you know, like.
Yeah. And you've had this,
it's
you've had this resilience and growth mindset, and I think those two combinations are so powerful for you, because you understand that you can constantly grow, and you're also resilient enough. So when you're hit with adversity, you're like, okay, let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I would kind of summarize your story in that way. It's that full circle of things keep going up and down in your life, but you're constantly moving forward, being resilient, and you understand that you're changing as you grow. And
Yeah,
embracing that.
I'm constantly trying to grow and evolve, definitely. And I think that if you have like failed enough times as I have, or, you know, experienced, like there have been lots of moments in my life that, you know, I've done the wrong thing or things just are learning lessons for me.
Yeah.
Like it's much easier to look at life not with so much like criticism on yourself.
Like a judgment on yourself.
Yeah, like you just
You can be
like,
your own worst critic sometimes.
yeah, I think that's what like stops people from really evolving or growing.
Yeah.
Like, and the way people see themselves. And so like I think I've had, the universe has blessed me in a lot of ways that I have been able to see myself at my worst in like lots, like maybe 3 significant moments in my life, and like forgiving myself in those moments and really like accepting like, okay, I'm capable of that, or I've done this, or just coming to terms with moments in my life where I wasn't proud, and knowing that these moments, even though they feel like they're going to last a lifetime or that they will never go, they do. And it's like there's something after.
Right.
And if you're just like, remind yourself like this feeling, even though it feels like it's forever and it's not going to go, like
it will pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to come through it. Like, and that's every lesson that I've had in my life. Like knowing, okay, I'm going to allow myself to feel everything that's going to happen to me right now, because I know there is a light at the end.
Yeah.
Like this is not the end.
Yeah.
So I think that's just really important for people when they go through their own journeys of struggle or anything. Like even if it's just something.
Yeah, and
small,
I understand what you're saying. It makes so much sense. And yeah, I hope that's what people take from your story, you know, that be resilient, adapt, you can grow, don't hold judgment on yourself for the things that you do wrong. And yeah, it's okay to do something wrong.
Forgiveness.
100%.
Yeah.
So I reckon that's a good way to leave it there. And anything you want to add there?
No, I think that's.
I look forward to your movie. I look forward to
Guys,
who plays
please
you.
put it out there in the universe.
Yeah.
What would you call your movie?
Well, I don't. Not a movie about myself. I would love to do a documentary. Because my brother hasn't met my biological dad yet.
Okay.
So that's just something that I went back to find out about, and like because we thought he was dead, we didn't know that he was alive. So when I met him, he like is the spitting image of my brother, and like if his personality is like exactly the same.
Really?
Like you wouldn't think that Gideon, my brother, and I are the siblings, because I'm so like talkative and extroverted, and he's like very introverted and like an overthinker, and he's a philosopher. He just sits and he's just kind of like, and that is my dad.
Right.
And like when I met him, I was like, oh my God, I would love for my brother to meet, like for Gideon, and because he had his own relationship with Gideon.
Okay.
So and he was like, the whole time when I met him, he was just talking about my brother the whole time. Like, how is he? What's he doing? Like he's absolutely obsessed with him. So
That'd be
that's
amazing
something
to
I really
document.
Want to do. Yeah.
You need to do that.
But I have to also do it like he didn't want to, like, he hasn't taken to that journey as much as I like. Because once I saw my brother have a relationship with my mum and I missed out on that, I was kind of like, okay, I need to find my dad, because if my mum's alive, my dad is definitely alive. And that's probably just a lie that they told us. And so I was more wanting that kind of relationship. And I think for Gideon, it was already a lot to have the relationship with his mum, our mum, and then for her to die. I think he is like finds it a bit hard to be vulnerable anyway. So that concept of being vulnerable and open to somebody again, and like the idea that could go.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel like he needs to be ready for that moment.
Yeah, and I think also
Like,
just
So he's not like caught off guard like how you were when you
yeah.
first met your mother.
I think no, but also I think it's kind of like you're meeting like son and father, and he wants to be in a place in his life where he's like, look at me, I'm proud. Like, you know,
Okay.
like look, he wants him to be proud of him.
Right.
And like, I've done all this, and this is, you know, this is what you're you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah, I
think
got
he
you.
doesn't want to come and be like, my life's in a mess right now, don't judge me.
Right.
But I was telling him, like, you know, like you've achieved so much.
Yeah.
You've done so much, and like at the end of the day, like that's
Yeah.
your ego speaking,
Yeah.
you know, and you'll regret not having a relationship with your dad, and you don't know what having a relationship with him will bring to your life. Like, you don't know if that's gonna create some sort of fruitful outcome for your own journey.
Exactly.
Like, you
That could
know?
be like the spark
Yeah.
that propels him forward to do, you know, even more.
100%. Like, even I think just seeing him, like, and realizing like this man, because it's also like, I know that we don't all look like our parents, but like when you look at your parents, you see like little similarities
Yeah,
of yourself.
of course.
So it was also like a huge thing for me to look at somebody that's my parent and see resemblance back at me. Like, it's a profound thing. Like, I
Yeah.
think people that, I think you just take that for granted.
Yeah, you're
when
right.
you've got, you know, biological parents. And so it's like it's like a crazy feeling to look at somebody and see like your eyes back at you, or your smile or something. And I just think that for him, it would be a beautiful moment, because he looks so much like
Right.
our dad, that
Yeah.
just that in itself would be very like a touching moment for him.
For sure. That is
So-
probably something we definitely take for granted.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, you have a good perspective of, say, like, because I've grown up with with both parents always in my life. There's probably like a lot of people that take things for granted, like that, what you said. Like, every time someone mentioned that, oh, I look just like my dad, I'm like,
Yeah.
so what? He's my dad.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or-
But for you to have this profound experience where it's like, holy crap, that's somebody that looks like me. And they're actually, you know, that's a very different perspective that I didn't have prior to this conversation. Yeah.
I feel like I've taken a, like...
Yeah, this has been a lesson.
This has been educational for me.
This has been classroom. This ain't moral of the story. This is
This is great. You're taking us.
this is a blackboard.
You know what? That guest seat is the teacher's seat. Like, that is, yeah. But you know what's so funny is because I can't relate to you in any aspect of your life. I'm not adopted. You know, I've always known. To be honest, I've had some issues with like my identity as well, like growing up in Australia. But like I would never know what it's like to be a mother, of course. But something that I find interesting about just your perspective and how you handle or deal with just confronting, challenging things that have come like unexpectedly into your life, like you handle it like with so much humility. Like you, when you're faced with a challenge, you like like any other person will probably be like, oh crap, what just happened? But your perspective is you step into a classroom. It's like, wait, now I need to learn. It's like you weren't trying to figure out like what just happened, what pregnancy, what is this, what just happened. You're like, wait, hang on a second, I'm a mother now. I need to do
Learn this,
I need
yeah.
to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good learning point for anyone.
Yeah.
Whether they can relate to you or not is just how you handle difficult situations. It's you don't take it like just stop and think like, oh crap, like what just happened. You think, okay, it just happened. Like it is what it is now. Okay, step into a classroom. We need to figure this out.
And one thing I want to add to that is like, even though you can't relate to her in many different aspects, but you can learn from her situation. So now when you're faced with, you know, whatever adversity, you can now take that perspective that she brings to her
100%.
life. And now you do have something that you can kind of relate on, you know?
Yeah,
And I think
sure.
that's what we're trying to do here on this podcast. It's just like, even though your story is very different to ours, we're actually still connected. Like, I still,
100%.
yeah, and that's
Yeah, I love that also. Like, I think, yeah, despite not, like, people listening and either not being, like, co-parenting or having a kid or being adopted, I think at the end of the day, it's these feelings that we all feel as humans of lost or whatever the emotions that each experience or journey has taken me on. I think everyone has experienced that emotion
Exactly.
at one point in their life. And I think, yeah, it's just, I don't know if it's this generation, but we think about things a lot, almost too much, like too much in the head, you know?
100%, yeah.
And I'm a thinker. I love to think. But when it comes to the next day, it's like, let it go. Today is a day, like a new day. You're going to experience new things. And I feel like if you don't let yourself release these thoughts or these, the voice in the back of your head saying no or doing this way or whatever, you close yourself off to like really allowing life to teach you, because like that's like what we're here to do, experience things and like release it, experience it, let it go, experience it, let it go, experience it, let it go.
yeah.
I think emphasize on let it go.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold on. And if you learn the lesson.
What's that movie? What's the song? What is it?
What? Oh,
Let It Go.
let it go. That's Zazi's favourite song, by the way.
Yeah. Oh. Come full circle again.
Oh, yes.
No, yeah.
That's awesome.
Kalkidan, appreciate you coming on
Thank
here.
you. Thank you
This
so
has
much.
been an amazing chat.
It's
and
my first
honestly,
podcast.
It's our
love
first
it.
real one.
Oh, really?
Like, we've done a bunch of practice ones.
Yeah.
That was one wasn't real. That was
Yeah, it's just,
Oh, it felt real, guys.
it's just for content. Just for content.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
No,
and thank you
thank
for being
you.
so vulnerable and sharing your story.
No.
I think it's going to help so many people. So,
Thank you for having me.
moral of the
I had a
story.
lovely time.
That's it.